I want to get into another
them as individual acts. Meaning that if he's exonerated for any one of them by the future president, if the future president decides to absolve him, he's still, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of individual cases you could try him on.
No. If the succeeding president were to pardon him, he could not be prosecuted. If he were pardoned, he could not be prosecuted. Just like
so, it's not like it's a bunch of different acts. If the next president pardons him, he pardons him for.
But we've never had a pardon, have we, for a bogus war?
No. This is the first time. We've been in existence for close to 300 centuries. No American president would ever dream of taking this nation to war under false pretenses. This guy is an aberration. He's a grotesque anomaly. Let's hope we never have another one like him. I want to talk about one other piece of evidence, and there's so much more in my book. January the 31st, 2003, close to 2 months before Bush invaded Iraq. Bush and Tony Blair, British Prime Minister, meet in the Oval Office with 6 of their aides, one of whom was Blair's chief foreign policy advisor, David Manning.
Is this the White House memo where he talks about painting a U.S. plane up like a UN?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's in my film, Terror Storm.
And that's what you read about, that I wrote about, yes.
What is he trying to do? Say that
here's what happened. Manning wrote in the memo, and he wrote it the very, very same day. It was a 5-page memo stamped extremely sensitive, that during the meeting, Bush and Blair expressed their doubt that any weapons of mass destruction would ever be found in Iraq. Now, this is 2 months before he goes to war claiming that there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But here's where it gets even worse than that. Manning wrote that Bush was so worried and so upset over the fact that UN inspectors had not found any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that he talked about, quote, provoking a confrontation with Hussein. 3 possible ways of doing it, one of which, as you indicated, Alex, was to fly U-2 aircraft over Iraq, falsely painted in United Nations colors, and Bush said if Hussein fires on this aircraft, it would be a violation of UN resolutions and would justify war.
But that would mean that he thought the UN was going to go along with that line.
Well, no. He's not talking about the UN doing it.
No, I know the U.S. doing it. I understand.
Yeah.
But
anyway, here we have George Bush telling Americans, telling the world, that Hussein is an imminent threat to the security of this country, and we have to strike first in self-defense.
And they're trying to provocateur.
But behind closed doors, this small man is talking about how to provoke Hussein into a war. The very last person in the world that someone acting in self-defense would try to provoke is the person they're in deathly fear of, the person who's about to kill them.
And isn't that, as a prosecutor, key to show that he consciously, premeditatedly knew he was fixing intelligence around it and trying to provocateur, as the White House memo says, the Downing Street memo says fixing intelligence around it. So that shows that they knew they were lying and it was a fraud.
That's the Downing Street memo, but I'm talking about the Manning memo.
No, the White House memo.
Which is even more. The Downing Street memo is that we've decided to go to war, now let's fix the facts to justify the war that we already want. But the Manning Street memo, we got George Bush talking about how to provoke Hussein into a war. If he felt that Hussein was an imminent threat to the security of this country, the thought of provoking Hussein into a war would never, ever, ever have entered his mind. We're talking about bad people here now. And they've gotten by with it because of the incredibly inept and spineless media. We're talking about media who are literally physiological marvels. They're able to sit erect in front of a camera without having a spine. I'm talking about the Charlie Roses of the world and the George Stephanopoulos. But I'm not going to let this guy get by with it if I can prevent it.
Okay, Joe Rogan, any questions or comments?
Here's a question. Would other people have to be prosecuted as well? Would the Senate have to be prosecuted? If you prosecuted George Bush for these crimes, would other people have to be brought in?
Well, they would not have to be, but they would. Undoubtedly, Bush conspired with these people. He didn't take the nation to war all by himself. There's no question that Cheney and Rice are involved, probably Rove. They'd all be prosecuted.
The Office of Special Plans, they created a special intelligence unit to make stuff up.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about Feith's group. Yeah. Here we got 16 authorized U.S. intelligence agencies, but then they wanted their own bought and paid-for agency, so they have this guy, Feith, who's working at the Department of Defense, has no experience whatsoever in intelligence, and this rogue group on its own is trying to feed Bush exactly what Bush wants to hear.
But Brownie, you're doing a hell of a job.
Pardon?
Remember, Brownie, you're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah.
What do you believe is going to happen if the Democrats win? And is that going to make any difference? Is that going to change the climate of a possible prosecution?
Well, you see, on a federal level, let me explain to you. On a federal level, there's really only one prosecutor who could bring these charges. That's the U.S. Attorney General in Washington, D.C. Now, there are 93 U.S. attorneys throughout the entire country, and theoretically, they could bring the charge also. But as a practical matter, it's very, very unlikely that they would go against Bush without the consent of their boss, the Attorney General in Washington, D.C. So from a realistic standpoint, on a federal level, we're only talking about one prosecutor, the U.S. Attorney General in Washington, D.C. But on a state level, we're talking about 50 attorney generals throughout the country, plus the district attorneys in counties within those states. And I say that it's not unreasonable at all to believe that there's one guy out there, at least one guy, that's going to be courageous enough to step forward and say, I'm going to go after it.
Okay.
I'm going to go after it.
I think you're making sense, and I think that is possible. What I'm saying is, do you believe that in the wake of a Democratic election, if the Democrats win, do you think that it's possible that people will start looking at this war, at this presidency, looking at it more clearly?
Yeah, does that increase the chances of...
No, I think that after and it's just speculation, people are concerned about what the Dodgers are doing or the Yankees. Their memory is as permanent as a breath upon the air.
Well, look what Bush did for Pardongate with Clinton. He called Congressman Burton's committee and said, drop your investigation, let's just start anew. So there's this tendency to cover up the crimes of the last administration by the new one because they want to get their back scratched when they leave in 4 to 8 years.
Absolutely. I think the likelihood of a prosecution here is going to be on a state and local level. I don't have any confidence in any Democratic president instructing his attorney general to bring charges against Bush. He's going to probably be catering to the right wing. They all cater to the right wing. What they don't realize is that the only way you can cater to the right wing is to change your registration. And by the way, I want to say this very, very clearly to your audience. Because there's been some suggestion that this is politically motivated. I've been a lifetime Democrat only because I am always for the little guy, and unless there's some compelling reason to be otherwise, I'm for the little guy. But my political orientation is not rigid. I supported McCain's run for presidency in 2000. And in my professional career, whether I'm prosecuting a murderer or whether I'm writing a true crime book, credibility has always meant everything to me.
Well, Vincent Bugliosi, we understand this isn't left or right, and we understand, I mean, this is a conservative/libertarian show, so we don't really get into the whole left-right paradigm. I would love to invite you back on to get into a part 2 of this book in the next month or so, sir.
I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir, and I'd also like to talk about your new JFK book that you've got out. It's 1,000-something pages.
Well, no, it's more than that. It's the equivalent of 13 volumes of 400-page books. It's already come out. And it just won the Edgar Allan Poe Award for the best true crime book of the year. I was in New York City last year.
Well, I mean, how long is it really? I read it was like 1,500 pages.
Well, the main text is 1,630 pages or something, but then there's a CD-ROM attached to it of another 1,000 pages. So it's the book on the case. It's the book on the case, and review after review saying it's a book for the ages. Scott Turow said centuries from now people are going to be reading this book. And as I say, Tom Hanks and his people are doing a 10-hour
Yeah, no. Mr. Bugliosi thinks he has the proof that it was a lone guy that did it, and I can't wait to have him on to talk about it.
I'd love to be on the show.
Well, sir, I
like you guys.
Listen,
You're stand-up guys.
There's no time like the present. How about I set you up in a week or two to come on and talk about it?
Okay. The only problem there is that I have a heavy schedule right now, so I'll give you a phone number. Call Sandy Mendelson, 212.
Hold on. Let's not give her number out on air, sir. Okay. During the break, let me talk to you right now.
Okay.
Okay. Stay there, sir.